This is Jason Verney's podcast. I am Jason Verney. In this episode, we're going to talk about Parasite's Oscar win 1 year on. So, contrary to what you might think the article is about initially, which is Parasite itself, it's actually more than a year. In fact, it's more than a year, the Oscar win, but just over a year. It was actually released a while before that time, but it was only a year ago, pretty much, when it won the Oscar, or the Oscars. I just want to, before I go on to talk about this, I just want to mention two things connected to this particular podcast. The first thing is, this is a kind of podcast running simultaneously with an article I'm publishing on the website, which is minimovie.com. I mean, it might be that you're actually listening to this via that article, but if you're not, then I would highly recommend checking out minimovie.com, because not only is there this podcast, other podcasts, there's also quite a few articles regarding Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, but also Korean cinema, Asian cinema, the London Korean Film Festival, other festivals, and we've recently celebrated, or in the process of celebrating, 10 years of being in existence, so it's quite a proud moment. And the other thing I want to mention is, if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify or on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, or even Spreaker or some other platform, I highly recommend as well that if you go over to YouTube, where these podcasts also go, this is the 67th podcast now, you'll also find hundreds of videos from yours truly, from myself, which have, and also ones that I've made over the years. So they're either snippets of events I've filmed or been commissioned to make, or they are podcasts, they're talks, the Bong Joon-ho, where I've been present, not actually an interview with him. I have met him a couple of times, but not actually an interview with him. But there's many videos regarding South Korea in general, Asia, India as well, and other places that seem to interconnect with things I write about on minimovie.com. So those two things I just want to get out of the way. Okay, so on with the podcast is, I was going to say article, because I'm actually going to be referring to the unposted article as I talk through this podcast and this subject. So yeah, this is all about Parasite's Oscar win 1 year on. Now, it's hard to believe, first of all, that it has been that long. About a year ago, I was watching it live. I wasn't watching the Oscars live. I was watching it unfold on Twitter live. Now, it's kind of, I mean, I don't use Twitter that much. I'll probably use Instagram more than anything, but occasionally Facebook. And it was hard to believe that what was happening, these Oscar wins. In fact, if you are on YouTube, or if you go to YouTube, incidentally, the channel URL for my channel is youtube.com/Jason Verney. But the reason I mention that is because this is not the first time I've talked about this. I was feeling very elated and kind of emotional last year when this happened. There's a vlog that I recorded in Richmond, somewhere where, coincidentally or not, Song Kang-ho and Bong Joon-ho, I believe, had also, well, at least Song Kang-ho, the main actor from Parasite and many other films, had been to for a screening and for actually interviews, which I narrowly missed out on, it seems. But yes, there's a few vlogs and a few videos on the channel regarding that. So yeah, I was quite elated. I was quite, I was very, very happy. I couldn't really believe it. The awards, as the awards were coming in, they won the first one, then they just kept on coming. So it was a brilliant moment for South Korea in general. And another thing, in this being 2020, that was the first of two things I was feeling quite proud of Korea. Let's. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not painting Korea as a fantastic place. It's got its issues, the same as any other country in the world, and you only have to look at the Sewol tragedy, the ferry that sunk in 2014, to look at some other issues that have been brewing. But in 2020, they also managed the coronavirus, or COVID, the virus, the dreaded C word I keep calling it, which could be either of those. I shouldn't really laugh, but hey, they handled it very well. They were, they have got the virus. They're not as on top of the virus now as they were, but all things being said, they were on top of it. One of the few countries. I mean, we had Vietnam. They've had like just probably 10 or 20 deaths in total. Thailand's probably had 60, 70 now. The UK's had 120,000, but we're not going to go into that. But I was feeling that to 2020, despite what was going on in the world, it was hard to believe that Parasite had just won the Oscars. And not only that, around that time, and again, there's videos and vlogs about this on the YouTube channel, which is, I'll mention it again, youtube.com/Jason Verney, but also minimovie.com. There's articles there regarding the black and white version, because there was a press screening in London, which I was fortunate enough to attend. And following, it was just hard to believe that was when we were going to the cinema. A couple of weeks later, it was no cinemas, no normal life. But the good news regarding the black and white version of the film, it is on iTunes to purchase. But I'm not going to go into that because I've actually got a separate article all about that on the site. So now, I was very proud. I was very, I've been into Korean culture for a decade, and film is right up there. I've interviewed lots of directors. I've been to I've been to Korea lots of times, 7 times or what have you, but I've also Busan Film Festival, which is, incidentally, just to plug another video on YouTube, there's a little snippet, I think there's more somewhere, which I haven't actually uploaded yet, of Bong Joon-ho discussing with Quentin Tarantino outside at a special talk at Busan International Film Festival in 2013, and that's the same year he released, or there was Snowpiercer. So there's me being very proud of Korea. Now I'm aware that I'm not Korean, and you can still be proud of something, but I'm not so. I was definitely more proud of, and still am, of Korea compared to the UK, or the not so Great Britain, I like to call it. So when that happened, it was amazing. Not only was it the first time Korea had won an Oscar and won such awards. I mean, The Handmaiden a few years before was almost up there to win awards. But not only that, it was the first time a foreign film, believe it or not, had won Best Picture. So we're talking about lots of land miles, lots of landmarks or milestones. That's what I'm trying to say. It was the sensation. People couldn't stop talking about it, and rightly so, in my opinion. So So that's what this is. Essentially, that's what this podcast is about. And as I mentioned at the beginning of 2020, we also had the black and white version, but we also had a special Tilda Swinton screening or season at BFI, and one of those was Snowpiercer, and she had Bong Joon-ho there, and that's when I briefly met him. But I'm just going over this now because it's in my article, and I wanted to include it in the podcast as well. So we're now living in a very different world, and things obviously have changed a lot. But it's not just for it's not just for myself. It's not just for everybody in the world. It's not just for Bong Joon-ho. But it is. But I was thinking about this. That things, of course, have changed for Bong Joon-ho. No longer can he hang around in his favourite coffee shops to do his writing. which is what he does, which a lot of people do. I mean, I do that as well, and I'm sure a lot of people do. But the world has also changed, because our pleasure of viewing films, which was in a cinema, especially for myself, I probably went to the cinema once or twice, not for Korean films. There's not that many that get released in the UK. My venue of choice for those is the Korean Cultural Centre in Charing Cross, for which, if it hadn't been for them, I wouldn't have been into Korean films and Korean culture as much as I am and have been. But so we were all introduced to this new world of now witnessing films online. Now, of course, we were already doing that to a degree, but now and then, last year and now, we've had to fully get into that position, and it's not just that it was a simple transition for cinemas, especially independent cinemas. They had to put together their own they had to work out how to get these platforms now, how to show films for their audience, which wouldn't be able to attend the cinema, and hopefully somehow also get the funding, because that's what they desperately need. It's not these big multiplexes, as we know. It's the small independent cinemas. We are, being in London. I mean, I'm actually living currently I'm the outskirts of London, which is Greater London. It's in Koreatown, which is New Malden. But when I was in London itself for a decade, or even just before coronavirus, I mean, we're lucky that London itself has got loads of independent cinemas, or at least it hasn't got as many as it had. When I lived in a town years ago at another place, there was, you'd be lucky if there was there might have been an independent cinema, I can't actually recall, but it was all about the chains, So I'll move on from that. But I kind of wanted to draw a parallel to how things have changed from in the world of film and the world in general, but also to how things have moved on for Bong Joon-ho. And let's just go over a few things that we know that Bong Joon-ho has sort of been up to. I mean, he's already talked about, he's got a couple of film projects in motion as such, but this is not to mention, of course, the talk of the Parasite TV show. Not sure how I feel about that, but it's it's a TV show that's going to be made. Apparently Tilda Swinton is going to be in the role there, so it's not going to be Korean, but as well as that, the TV series or serial, whatever, of Snowpiercer is now on Netflix. So sure, that was all going on behind the scenes last year, but we've now got used to this, and this is the way of the world now. So he's got, as I say, he's got a couple of film projects on the go. Parasite, the TV show, coming our way. Snowpiercer on Netflix. But as I mentioned, I'm not too sure how I feel about TV sort of installments of a film, unless it's a real elaboration. If it's a real, not just for the sake of it, not just to sort of buy episodes just to get, which essentially just gets advertising for people to watch. But anyway, I'm not going to get sort of tied up with all the conglomerates involved and whatever. We're all a part of that. We can't help it. But so I really wanted to speak about that. Essentially, we have to think that, yes, this might be news that he's in the process of making 2 new films, or writing them, or they're being made. But we have to, we have to remember that Parasite was his 7th film. I think that's right. But yes, his 7th film. So it's not like this is a new thing for Bong Joon-ho. That said, when you win something that big, there's a lot of expectation, and I do really hope, and I write this in the article as well, I really do hope that however his next film does, it's not panned. It's not looked upon negatively, because after all, I mean, we should remember that it's an art form, and it's not just about wins and awards and profit or whatever. It's not just about that. It's about art. Now, if people look at his films, again, in this article on Mini Movie, which will be pretty much when I submit this podcast, when I publish this podcast, I'll be simultaneously publishing the article, so they'll both be available at the same time. There's actually a link to an article I wrote which touches on his his films, which are all available except for Okja, because that's a Netflix exclusive. They're all on iTunes. They're available elsewhere, but iTunes is kind of my go-to place to seek out what's new and what's for sale, at least, and obviously, and some to rent. But so his first film was Barking Dogs Never Bite. Then he had I'll get this in the right order. Memories of Murder. I might be in the wrong order here. Sorry. The Host. These are all very different films as well. Mother, which there was also a black and white version for, and I wrote about this as well, and I've spoken about this, I believe, that's another reason why I was so surprised that the black and white version of Parasite was made available to purchase, at least at such sort of expansive way, in other words, on iTunes for everyone to buy. Whereas, yes, with Mother or Maddo, when that came out, there was a black and white version, but you probably, if you were into DVDs at the time, or that kind of format, then yes, there probably would have been a way to have the black and white version. But now it's so easy for anybody to get the black and white version of Parasite. I do rate the black and white version. I think the black and white version of Parasite is good. Obviously, the colours are beautiful in Parasite, so it swings and roundabouts. But just to complete that list, we have Parasite, we have Snowpiercer. So that's so it's Parasite, Snowpiercer, Memories of Murder, The Host, Mother, Barking Dogs Never Bite, and Parasite black and white version. They're all available on iTunes. So that's actually 7. I believe, obviously, there's only 6 films, but 7 films, because one of them is a version of the same film, different version. And then, of course, the 7th film is Okja, which is I liked Okja. It's on Netflix. So I think really I wanted to just sum up what he's been up to, and the fact that we should remember that it's we hope that he doesn't get. I can't imagine his 8th film being a bad film. I mean, he hasn't made a bad film yet, in my opinion. There was a lot of again, Barking Dogs Never Bite might not be up there with the others, but it was his first film. You kind of go easy on someone in that respect. Myself, I'm making films. I'm actually making a mid-length film at the moment, so I kind of understand that. It's not destined for greatness, but at the same time, it is what it is. But Snowpiercer, yes, that was an American. Oh, actually, no, it's an international cast, but it was kind of a Hollywood film, and people didn't like it as much as his other films, or perhaps there was also controversy about Weinstein wanted to cut like 20 or 30 minutes or something from it, and Bong Joon-ho got his way, and it's still intact. It's the director's cut version that you see. Incidentally, the Parasite, the black and white version, I believe the reason for him doing that, apart from, again, there's an article and a video all about this, but one of the reasons was that certain directors years ago, for example, let's just name one, which is Hitchcock, he had the opportunity, due to the changes in technology and the time of the era, he had black and white films and colour films. So I think that was one way he would have. It's nice to have the choice of both, but there's other reasons for the black and whites, but I'm not going to go into that now. So I do hope that he's obviously he's busy, but I do hope that he he doesn't get people don't, what's the word? Rack his, I was going to say his knuckles. Let's just hope he doesn't get looked upon negatively just because of a film that's not quite the same as Parasite. The other reason for this article, I wanted to tie in because with some playlists which I've got on YouTube now. Sorry to keep promoting my stuff, but I feel like these videos on my YouTube channel, there's a couple of hundred videos, I'm thinking, but the ones that do seem to get the most interest, and this is why I really wanted to post this as part of my article, to sort of, to show people that there's people that read my articles. I'm not saying there's a great deal, but there's people reading my articles on minimovie.com who don't necessarily know about the videos and and even short films that I've made that are on video art as well on YouTube. But essentially, there's about 10 videos that relate to Bong Joon-ho. Be that the vlogs I did, there's 3 or 4 of those. The Bong Joon-ho and Tarantino talk. There's actually the Tilda Swinton. There's 5 snippets of the Tilda Swinton and Bong Joon-ho BFI talk from last February, I think it was. It might have been early March. I'm pretty sure it's February, actually. Not only that, there's also some videos of some other Korean well-known faces. There's also films about Asian cinema, videos about Asian cinema. There's also some documentary footage from Busan International Film Festival. I think I've been there 3 or 4 times. I think I've been to Korea 7 times. I'm trying to remember if I've been to Busan Film Festival 3 or 4 times, but either way, it's a really good festival. I think it's Asia's biggest international festival. There's a film I did with Eastern Kicks of the premiere of Kung Fu Jungle, which is Donnie Yen. Incidentally, Eastern Kicks with myself and Hangul Celluloid, London Korean Links, and a couple of other people. We are part of the London Asian Film Society. Essentially, it's a Facebook page, but there's articles that get posted regarding events that happen, films that are available, and interviews that we've done with actors and directors that we like to show people that who are interested in Asian cinema. So that the URL for that, incidentally, is facebook.com/London Asian Film Society. Yeah, as it is. And I will mention Eastern Kicks is just easternkicks.com. There's a guy, Andrew Heskin's a good friend of mine. He runs that, and he covers everything Asian film wise. So that's it really. I really just wanted to do a little podcast regarding 1 year on from the Oscar win of Parasite, what he's been up to, what we've been up to, what Korea has been up to, what my YouTube channel has been up to with regard to Korean videos. There's also, in fact, it's not all it's not all sort of light videos. There's a few that I'm posting from 2012 when I was shooting a musical in London regarding Korean and Asian comfort women, and that's a sensitive subject between Japan and Korea, but there's actually some footage I'm gradually putting on to the YouTube channel, stuff that's either been in a documentary or was used for something else, or I was commissioned to film it, and the footage is mine or whatever. So I'll leave it there. It's already been I didn't realise it's been 24 minutes. I was trying to keep it less than half an hour, so I've succeeded in that. I'll try and keep it less than 25, and just say that so minimovie.com if you want to know more, and youtube.com/Jason Verney are the 2 main places I've mentioned. So I hope everyone's staying safe, stay well, stay safe, stay watching movies, and just keep well, and keep watching. Thanks guys, see ya.